Chapter 7, Episode 11 Entering Enemy Territory. After returning to the de Medici's household, Thelma and the others began preparing to leave for the new continent. First of all, I quickly prepare cold weather equipment, portable food and a number of medicines that I usually prepare, and also prepare medical equipment that I can carry. Pa also packed the necessities in his bag and did the preparations quickly. It seems that he also carries a cane. Ellen did not go home, but made a makeshift organization from the belongings the Medici family room, which was reserved for Blanche's scooter. It looks like it will be a big burden, as always. Unlike them, who were more or less packing, the Holy Emperor, who seemed to be thinking of leaving with only a stroke of the stick, was already relaxing in the de Medici's family guest room. Don't panic, nothing forgotten? Sorry. I'll serve tea while you wait, so please relax. Thelma ordered tea and sweets from the new butler, who was on night shift. I'm sorry. What about the young lady over there? I think it's wise not to pry too much. The butler, not even realizing that the person in front of him was Saint Emperor Elizabeth, was confused and asked Thelma for confirmation. Elizabeth hides her mouth with a fan, whether by accident or fear of being discovered. Nevertheless, he created an unusual atmosphere by the sharpness of his eyes and his appearance. By the way, Thelma, if you go out, do you want me to help you prepare? No, I can prepare by myself. Or rather, I can't leave it to others this time. Lack of belongings makes people needy. I understand. Are you going home today? I don't have any appointments yet. Please tell the pharmacy and the university to cancel all my appointments for today and tomorrow. Even if Thelma's original plans were to be foiled, the Holy Emperor, who was the head of state and supreme religious leader, was deserted or rather, absent from the imperial capital. Of course, I want to return to the imperial capital before things get out of hand, and I would rather leave them here, but Elizabeth doesn't listen. But sometimes you can take her with you. This means that if there are problems on the new continent, the local people and the chief executive of the San Fluive Empire can have a direct conversation. I appreciate the quick decision-making. As I was making preparations in my room, the door opened unexpectedly. Anyway, are you going somewhere like that at dawn? Blanche, are you awake? Blanche, who was standing up in the bathroom, entered and rubbed her eyes. My sister found me at the wrong time. It wasn't that far away or equipped, but Blanche seemed to feel something when she saw Thelma's face. I'm going too. I'm getting ready. No, you can't take me with you. If little brother goes anywhere alone, something will happen, Sam worried. I think it's better if we stay together. Blanche clutched the hem of her negligee, and her eyes were moist. He must remember the attack of evil spirits on the imperial capital. Thelma stroked Blanche's head as if to soothe her, who suddenly clung to her. You are not alone. Brother and Ellen will go together, so don't worry. Then I'll go too. Blanche left in a hurry. However, she's never changed her clothes or gotten ready herself before, so it's going to be hard for her to get dressed. I feel sorry for her, but she has no choice but to leave in the meantime. Thelma left Blanche on the second floor and went down the stairs to the guest room. Elizabeth quenched her thirst with black tea, but it did not suit the discerning emperor's palate, as she was left with a bite of her low-sugar homemade cookies. By the way, Thelma, where is your first destination on the new continent? Please look here. Thelma hands the map of the new continent to the Holy Emperor. This is a newly created map of the new continent by Thelma. I photographed the new continent from the sky with my smartphone and took it to the imperial capital. Officially, it was something that Admiral Jean and others should have obtained by surveying. Fumu, it's strange that this map is here now. The Holy Emperor gave Thelma a downcast look and tried to explain why the map had already been completed even though the expedition had not yet returned. That is, he has no deeper tours and takes an accomplice attitude towards Thelma. Thelma did not panic and ran his fingertips over the map. I think this is where Admiral Jean and the others landed, he said. The front of the bay is wide but also deep enough. It's just right to break the waves. Based on the depth of the water, it is assumed that the ship landed directly on land. If there was a communications problem when we evacuated temporarily, it would be at sea. I would like to keep it offshore and ensure its safety. What if everyone has landed? It is assumed that not all will land and some will be on standby, but in that case searching ashore will be the first decision. While Falma buttoned his coat, Ellen and Pal finished their preparations and joined us. Ellen's bag was puffy, as expected. I'm sure she'll cry, but I can't see Blanche yet, so I'll leave her there. His Holiness, thanks for waiting. Let's go. How many nights should I expect? When Ellen, who was carrying a lot of luggage, asked in an awkward way, Elizabeth said, I can't stay overnight, the goal is to get things settled right away. After all, the first thing is to confirm safety and rescue the sick and injured. If you're worried, will you stay? It won't stay, it won't do any good. 4 out of 5, Eleanor. I'll be back tomorrow night. Ellen shrugs anxiously at Elizabeth's strong words. I agree with you. Do you mean to say that you feel lonely even if I accompany you? There's no such thing as extinction. Then let's go. Elizabeth joked. Ellen winced in the face of the aloof and brawny Holy Emperor. Pal made a teasing gesture behind the Holy Emperor, and Ellen clenched her fist. Feeling a little uncomfortable about the lack of tension between them, Falma gathered the group together. Then let's go right away, let's take you to the new continent. I'd like to say, but it's dangerous if you get caught by the wind while flying at high speed. I will prepare a windbreak, so please wait here. Falma rushed outside, unlocked the de Medici's family warehouse and entered. Inside the warehouse, dozens of ingots were neatly leaned against the wall and displayed left and right. Asked the Holy Emperor, who followed Falma, although he was told to wait. Is this silver? The luster is similar, but they are all aluminum alloys. What is this unknown thing? Because it is incomplete, I will report on it elsewhere. We've been thinking about mass production with the intention of industrial production in Marseille. You again. Have you been working hard at home without getting discouraged? I'm not the producer. It was made by Archduke Melody. To put it in detail, I told Melody and her apprentices how to make it, provided the means, and let them make it. While Falma was looking at the ingot, he briefly explained to the Holy Emperor the properties of aluminum and how to use it. The reason it is aluminum is because bauxite, the raw material of aluminum, was discovered in the southwestern part of Marseille. In this other world, where aluminum had not yet been discovered, bauxite-rich lands were agriculturally barren. There was no main industry for the people living there, and there was a petition in a situation where they migrated to neighboring areas and lived off the tenancy of the great feudal lord. Falma plans to monetize the bauxite mines as a new source of income for the people in the area. On Earth, aluminum has typically been refined by extracting alumina from the raw material bauxite using the bare process, followed by molten salt electrolysis using the Hall-Héroult process. However, these processes consume a large amount of electricity, and even with the scientific and industrial power of modern Earth, fire accidents often occur. When this method is used, safety management is unreliable in another world. Therefore, Falma's main goal was to achieve safe refining, regardless of the degree of refining. The Earth Tribute magic uses crushing, decomposition magic first breaks down bauxite into fine pieces. Then uses divine magic to sift ores and gems to separate the materials. Followed by a refining method that uses Melody's flames to separate and crystallize them to establish, and finally, in conjunction with the excellent flame magic of Melody the Flame Technician, there are many aluminum alloy ingots lying around in the de Medici's family warehouse. Let's build a simple guest room out of an aluminum manganese alloy. This alloy, made by a steady process of adding refined pure aluminum and a trace amount of manganese. Heating, solution annealing, cooling and hardening, is used for the main body of aircraft on Earth, and there is a problem with the degree of refinement. There are some impurities, but it is easy with no problems with strength. When Pal saw this, he raised his eyebrows in confusion. It's great, but it's still in the state of a slab. Don't tell me you're going to process it now. I didn't prepare it, so I have no choice but to do it now. Falma took out a large ruler from the tool compartment and formed a lump of iron with his left hand. Immediately after creating the material, the object can be held in the air for a short time. So while it remains in the air, aim the iron mass and slide the right hand in a straight line over the ruler you are holding with the left hand and process into a straight line under material removal. Recently Falma invented this method that makes it look like it was cut with a sharp knife, and he likes it and uses it comfortably. A rustic carriage was created by placing an aluminum manganese ingot into a cuboid metal mold and pressing it. I made it in one fell swoop. The Holy Emperor groaned at Falma's fantastic magic, literally solved with quantity and physics, and Ellen and Pal were half open. It's a tremendous supernatural work, I can't catch up with my understanding. Do you create substances as you wish and erase them as you aim? No, this is an alloy, so I just processed what you made for me. Falma smiled amiably. The Holy Emperor didn't seem to understand the meaning of "it's an alloy," but since Falma can't make eutectic mixtures other than compounds, it would be desirable for someone to make them. Also, I would like to make the conclusion that Falma has everything set up with material creation. The materials that exist in this world are used to make things that can be done in this world with the hands of the people of this world. That is my next goal. Otherwise technology will not spread. Pal looked around the newly built guest room, acknowledged the structure, and then tilted his head. Your work looks like it can seat more than 10 people, but is it the wrong size? 3 people can go on it, you know. 3 people will go, but I plan to carry the whole crew on the way back. It's too heavy to carry, isn't it? I'll explain on the way back. Get in the car once, please. The 3 of them shut up, got into the wagon with their luggage, and wrapped themselves in double blankets. Ride with it, and Ellen appreciated the good treatment. I was prepared to get frostbite from the cold wind, but it's as cozy as a carriage room. Thank you, Falma-kun. Thank you. I don't mind sleeping, so please preserve your physical strength and restore your divine power. It was a schedule to go directly to the new continent after being exhausted from the large-scale exercise just before. Even if you land exhausted, there is nothing you can do. Falma wanted him to get as much sleep as possible. Didn't you say you would be there in an hour? The Holy Emperor, who has the goal of returning within the day, is busy. Then you go alone. For that is the number of people. What is your speed? I can do it, but if I carry people with this equipment, I can't do it at high speed. 10 hours just to move. I'm sorry, but... Or rather, if Falma reaches full speed, they will die because they will fly through space. I didn't really explain it, but this is the reason. On the way we will stop in Marseille. Marseille is on the shortest route to the new continent, so we won't waste any time. I'm sorry for leaving everything to you. Falma quickly ran a series of chains through the edge of the cart, bundled them in the air, hung them, and attached them to the handle of his cane. A mercury barometer was attached to the frame, and oxygen cylinders, mass-produced at the Marseille factory when Pal was already suffering from leukemia, were used for the numbers. In this way, Falma can fly and at the same time check the situation inside. Although sometimes we have to descend to low altitudes to ventilate the cabin. The weight of 3 people and the weight of the aluminum alloy frame car are barely enough for Falma to fly at high speed. Ellen noticed this and took care of Falma. As expected, you 3 are heavy? Is there anything I can do to help you? I should have gone on a diet, Ellen jokes. Falma wants to point out that there may be more baggage. This staff is a multi-core with additional power other than the medicine god staff, and the staff itself has been reinforced, so I'll be able to handle it somehow. Have a good flight. The next time you wake up, I've arrived on the new continent. Would you like directions? Should we look at a compass? I've been there several times, so I can't be wrong. The upper part of the cabin is sealed with tempered glass to prevent pressure differences. Don't choke. I won't. I inject compressed air into the cabin while looking at the barometer and release it, but if it gets painful, use the oxygen tank early. There were times when I was exuberant for no particular reason, and I felt like I was having fun. That will be soon. I know the former, but what about the latter? Pal de Medici's, a man full of confidence, tilted his head like an embodiment of arrogant disrespect. It is said that he was on the verge of losing consciousness in a state of severe hypoxia. There is a true story on Earth that such symptoms occur when hypoxia occurs at high altitudes. Even if that is the case, he is a member full of confidence that is hard to understand. While smiling wryly, I decided to fly while checking from time to time with my diagnostic eye. As I channeled my divine power into my staff, the chains tightened and the carriage lifted off the ground. Falma hardly froze, probably because of his natural divine power. And you ain't no idiot. I have made all the preparations, so don't leave me. I thought I heard a small voice from below. I saw Blanche left behind, but she was getting smaller. Sorry Blanche, I'll make up for it when I get home. Considering the air resistance, I would like to fly at altitude regardless of the cold, but since it is not an airplane, a sudden climb will cause the air pressure to drop and the passengers to be in danger. Therefore, Falma moderately cleared the atmosphere in the direction of travel and created a condition as if cruising at high altitude. After reaching a stable attitude and checking the air pressure in the cabin, the aircraft gradually accelerated and switched to high-speed flight. Falma and the others glided across the morning sky as if they were sailing on the sea of clouds. We detoured to Marseille and took 6 hours to reach the new continent. Falma could arrive alone in about an hour, but even on Earth the record for the fastest crossing of the Atlantic by plane is about 5 hours, so anything beyond that would be the speed limit. Adjust the air pressure, open the glass hatch, lower the altitude, switch to slow flight at a position of about 500 meters, and fly between the clouds to protect against enemy attack. Ellen and Pal screwed up their faces. I can see it. That's the new continent. So. They both bent over excitedly and peered down. Elizabeth doesn't seem to be waking up yet, she's in a dream. Falma confirmed with his eyes that her condition was fine. It should not happen that you do not wake up in death thinking that you are asleep. Falma hid behind the clouds and flew away, fixing his eyes on the sea. Strange. What's going on? Over there. There are a lot of board-like scraps floating around. The ship may have been destroyed. You can see all right? There were 5 ships. If you estimate from the floating objects, it's hard to say how many ships, but several were hit. Admiral Jean, Clara and others. I had a medical checkup for everyone before we left, so I remembered the names and faces of the crew members. I also brought a list of all crew members with photos to identify missing people. And yet, there is no ship. Falma's expression froze. No. It's already over. Why did we come here? Pal, who saw it off a full-fledged warship a month ago, doesn't believe it. The last communication was 3 days ago. I wonder if I didn't make it in time. But the bodies don't float. At this point, it felt like something was crossing the corner of Falma's field of vision. As I turned my gaze to the sea, I could see a clear flash around the center of one of the scattered small islands. Illustration by Mimin. What is that? Are those guys who destroyed the ship with some divine art telling me where they are? No, they're not enemies. How do you know? It's a signal mirror, it keeps hitting us. Isn't it just a reflex or something? It's not a coincidence, it comes with clear intentions. It's a signal mirror for distress signals that knows about survival goods. Signal mirrors use the reflection of sunlight to help searchers locate places from above. There is a hole in the center of the palm-sized mirror, and it is possible to send a distress signal after adjusting the sights. The signal mirrors, originally used by the East Indian Company for communication between ships, were improved by Falma so that they could be aimed at each other. Pal, watching it, shouted, "Uamabushi! Isn't that like telling the enemy your location, idiot?" No, I'm not stupid, I can't see anything other than the target I was aiming at. After a short time, the light began to flicker and repeat violent reflections. Oh, I'm sending you a signal. Ellen, take the red notebook from my luggage. Look at the note inside to decipher it. Cover the mirror with your hand and send the signal. Oh, I see. Falma decided to turn the flickering light into a signal and communicate it verbally while asking Ellen to decipher it. Opening Falma's notebook, she found the code table he used for his Morse correspondence. Deciphering it. Everyone gets captured and surrounded by enemies. So, there is an enemy lurking around the crew on this island. Falma confirmed the number of people from the sky with his diagnostic eye. There is a small open area in the center of the island, and a large number of people emitting pale light are lying on top of each other. Dozens of healthy adults seem to surround them and watch over them. In the midst of all this, the radio operator was frantically trying to point the signal mirror at me so they wouldn't notice me. Exclamation mark. Are all the people lying blue? Do they have a fever? I suspected toxicosis by examination, but it was off. Infectious disease is suspected next, but there are too many premises to identify. Take back the hostages first, let's raid. Pal was getting angry, so Elizabeth noticed the voice and woke up. Oh, we've arrived already. What a terrific view. Despite Elizabeth's excitement, Ellen, looking down, turned pale and waved her walking stick. Wall of ice. Ellen's strong ice barrier was shattered like glass and something penetrated the ice wall. Creation of tungsten. Falma placed a tungsten barrier behind Ellen's barrier. The flying object is blocked by the barrier, repelled, and falls on the sea surface. And what I heard after a while was the sound of gunshots. It was the bullet flying and the space part being snapped. It didn't look like he was targeting Falma personally. Why the shooting? Whether it's a gun or a cannon, bring it. I'll burn it down so you get used to it. Pal cries and Elizabeth laughs fearlessly. Falma rebuked Elizabeth as she sharply raised her staff, which seemed to be in combat mode. There are hostages over there, don't forget that. And although the situation is unclear and the difference in strength between us is unknown, the story definitely gets complicated if you suddenly kill the other party. What are you slowing down? I wonder if my subjects will be killed. I can control the flames so they only burn the enemy. Maybe they didn't. You are too kind. Elizabeth was speechless. There is a basis. I heard 6 shots in a row from different places. Those shots were the guns that Mr. Jean and others had. I'm sure it was stolen. Then I don't know how to handle it. Someone from the Empire taught them, so maybe it's not a hostile relationship. Besides, they don't seem to have any wounds. Then why are we getting shot at? If there were lumps of metal floating in the sky in this world, well, that would be suspicious, he said. Falma turned his left hand and activated the material creation. Stab a building high mass of iron into the sea and put a carriage on it. Bullets shouldn't reach all the way up from the ground, but I don't mind, so I put a polycarbonate barrier on top like a fortress and secure the field of view. In no time, a fortress was there for defense. Stay here. I'll secure the hostages first. I will bring them here. You're the only one cheating. This time Falma listened to Pale's shouting behind him and approached the island alone from the sky. The gunfire was repeated relentlessly and fiercely. But it was difficult to shoot because of its height, and even if the bullets reached it, the physically handicapped Falma would do nothing about it. After Falma wasted 6 lead bullets and began loading ammunition, he built a cylindrical defensive wall to surround the hostage from above, physically shield the attack, and plunged downward. At the same time, extinguish the line in the surrounding area. This should make it impossible to snipe with a lead bullet. Strictly speaking, you can snipe when you pack something, but you can earn time to pick up pebbles that fit perfectly, so do not dare to erase the material of the barrel. What Falma saw when he reached the foot of the defensive wall was the emaciated form of the crew members of the Imperial fleet. All of them were breathing. No one dead. But he was gasping with fever and pain and was rolled to the ground with his hands and feet tied. The one who sent the signal mirror seemed to be holding him in his mouth because his hands were tied. Falma shivered at the strange sight as he partially extinguished the carbon and cut the rope with his bare hands. What the hell? What happened? Master Falma, thank you for coming. Majorine, the apothecary, called out to Falma, sobbing. The long apothecary smock she wore had been torn off, and she was crawling on her bare knees, bound in a hairless figure. Falma could not help but take off his coat while she looked away, and put it around his waist. Those who had regained their freedom of limbs were still suffering from sickness and fever. Was the wand stolen? Falma asked hesitantly, wondering if it was okay to ask. They say it was stolen by residents while he was unconscious. They nodded regretfully. Their self-esteem and fighting spirit were destroyed after their wands, which were the second most important thing after the nobles' lives, were taken away. Anyway, let's make sure we're safe. Falma put his left hand on the ground. We will get up together with the ground. Please lie down on the ground. Falma covered the ground at the base of the cylindrical barrier with an iron plate and continued the material creation as it was. Then the iron pillar rose and extended like a tower. As long as you lie here, you will not be shot. The range of the bullet is several hundred meters, and it is within range. However, there is no sniper who can shoot a person lying on the roof of a building from the ground. Now it's a matter of analyzing the situation and taking care of the wounded. Before I knew it, Ellen had built an ice bridge over the iron tower that Falma had just built, and I could see the 3 people I had left behind coming towards me on the other side of the tower. I am grateful for the help, but as expected, I get snuffed. Since the lead bullet was extinguished, it must have been filled with something else. Oh, it looks like you're coming here. Yakushi-sama, do you have a stick? If it's an orb, you can block it with earth attribute magic. That's what the priest and the crew members said. As Pal demonstrated, divine arts and divine techniques can be used without a staff by turning one's arm into a staff. But without such training, all users of divine arts are helpless if their staff is taken away from them. Return money. They need a staff to regain their confidence. Yes, I will do it now. Make exclamation question mark. Falma clenched a fist with his left and right hands and joined them in front of him. While creating matter with his left hand, he immediately erased matter with his right hand and formed a wand like a 3D printer. Make a thick stick and make a groove in the middle like a chopstick. And as a final touch, he turned it into a holy stick by chanting the sanctification chant. I split a single thick cane in the middle like a chopstick and handed it to them. Yes sir. It doesn't come with crystals, but it works well. Priests and sailors who used the earth attribute of divine arts and were handed the newly made cane opened their mouths and widened their eyes. Hey, you took the cane out of your sleeve, right? Yes. Falma decided to do so to avoid trouble. They waved their wands as if to say they had returned to divine arts and formed a clay wall to support them. A short time later, the trio arrived on the ice after completing their middle-distance run. Falma, please leave it behind. Why are you going without permission? Pal curses and Ellen is out of breath. The Holy Emperor is not breathing at all. I was thinking of calling you later. All the sailors are surprised at the appearance of Elizabeth. Admiral Jean, who regained consciousness there for the first time, prostrated himself as soon as he saw Elizabeth. His Holiness. Saint Elizabeth. Exactly. What's wrong? I've come to help you personally. Some were moved to tears at the sight of the monarch who had crossed the sea to save his subjects. Admiral Jean wept silent tears of regret. However, in the emotional confrontation, a sharp voice rose. Your Highness, please stay away from us, we are infected. Pharmacist Majorine screamed. It was a feeling of tragedy that I could not allow my master to be infected with an unknown disease. Airborne infection does not work here. Contact infection may occur. Falma's passively deployed sanctuary nullifies infections from airborne viruses and fungi. Even if there were pests, they would never reach this height. Falma-kun, let's give them first aid. Yes. Ellen began to open the medicine cabinet. Falma questioned Majorine about her symptoms. After first confirming that Falma was not a typical infectious disease, he began to identify the root and source of infection. What they all have in common is fever, muscle pain, abdominal pain, hematuria, vomiting, and even vomiting blood. Okay. How did you get your water? There was no problem with the water quality of the divine artificial water and the lake water I drank, so I drank it after boiling it. What did you eat? We only eat fish and shellfish caught in the lake and the food we bring. We didn't eat any native fruits or plants. Of course, we also tested for heavy metals, microorganisms and parasites. I was. Really? It's frustrating. What did I miss? What Majorine had taken out of her pocket and held in her hand like a talisman was a simplified version of the pharmacy textbook written by Falma. The contents told me it was useless in this place. Have you ever been bitten by an insect? I have, but the sting is not particularly swollen. You said lake, but have you bathed there? I have. The water quality was good and some swam. I checked the water quality and there were no parasites, were there? I swam in fresh water. I don't think that's it. Falma examined the question with his eyes and checked the answers in his mind. Bilharzia. It's half an intuition, but it was done quickly because the keyword was too frequent. I guessed it was schistosomes. Out of the question. Because she had a vague knowledge of it, it was ruled out as not a textbook symptom. Some types of schistosomiasis are less likely to cause cercarrial dermatitis. An early infection may not produce worm eggs. To be honest, Falma didn't spare an article on schistosomiasis in the pharmacy textbook. Perhaps because the imperial city and neighboring countries are in high latitudes, there have been no cases of schistosomes at all. There are several types of schistosomiasis on Earth with different symptoms and different endemic areas. Falma has only listed typical symptoms, and of course that does not cover all types. Besides, this is a different world. No wonder flukes cause different symptoms. Majorine slammed her fist on her knee and exploded in frustration. Praziquantel. Even though I had it, I was responsible for it. Just because I was immature. Back then, if I had given it to him to drink right away, I didn't have enough for that many people, but I had time to drink it. Although we were able to save the seriously ill, the attack sank to the bottom of the sea. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I am incapable. As a pharmacist responsible for the safety of the crew, she cannot forgive this mistake. The pharmacist and technologist accompanying him could not detect any worm eggs during the ordered series of examinations. An autopsy was not possible because no one died. It appears that hematuria was found, but it could not be identified because no tissue biopsy was performed. There was also a ship's doctor, but he specialized in surgery and couldn't see through it. You did a good job. If Falma didn't have an eye for diagnoses, he wouldn't even know if the cause could be determined. Like Majorine, he was probably clueless until the first death. If someone had died, an autopsy could have been performed. But no one died, probably because it was early in the infection. Falma thought from the bottom of her heart that she was doing the best she could. Praziquantel. Falma opted for standard treatment for schistosomiasis. It's okay now. We don't have enough praziquantel for the number of people, but if Falma makes it and gives it to them, there will be no problem. All that is left is to bring everyone back to the Empire and treat them there. When explaining, we have enough people, praziquantel, Ellen said. Why did you take on so much? I always carry a lot of baggage. As expected of Ellen. Reading back my actions is perfect. I am grateful to Ellen, who always comes to work with a lot of baggage and always prepares for emergencies when traveling. Relieved after hearing Ellen's words, Majorine continues. Remember, Clara Clue warned me that bad things would happen if I went into the lake. But she couldn't explain why. She had foreseen something. I can't see the Clara-san. When we found out, they were all brought here. But, for some reason, she's the only one missing. Falma looks around. I have a bad feeling about this. With a precognitive ability specialized in travel, she was an indispensable presence on this trip, a pilot. She's gone. The enemy was aware of Clara's abilities and tried to exploit them. Yo bro, isn't this guy a pretty formidable opponent? Pa also began to understand what it meant to take Clara away. Using Clara's prophecy, it means he was ambushed. And people here don't get schistosomiasis. Rather, he is familiar with schistosomiasis and even has a line aimed at detecting the infection. But Pal is not afraid. He seems to enjoy the situation. Falma also nodded. No matter who it is, I'll get everyone home safely, he said. If it's stolen, until you take it back. My subjects are mine. The Holy Emperor also declared. Falma came staggering to his feet, staring at the unseen enemy lurking below.